Jack Morrison was dispatched to die. What he did instead shook the galaxy. Part 1. The Suicide Mission. The year was 2347, and humanity had finally reached the stars. But reaching them and being welcomed by them were two very different things. Jack Morrison stood at the observation deck of the Coalition vessel Endless Dawn. Watching distant nebulas swirl in colors he had no names for. Behind him, the ship hummed with activity. Alien crew members walked past without looking at him. To them, he was invisible. Just another human. Just another member of the lowest species in the Galactic Coalition. Humanity had joined the Coalition 15 years ago. 12 species worked together across the galaxy, sharing technology, resources, and protection. But not equally. The Coalition ranked species by their usefulness, their strength, their history. Humans sat at the bottom. Tier 6, the weakest classification. Short lives. Fragile bodies. No special abilities. The other species tolerated humans the way someone might tolerate a small insect in their home. Not worth killing, but certainly not worth respecting. Jack was 34 years old. He had served in the Coalition military for 12 years, working his way up to commander. It meant nothing to the aliens. A human commander was still just a human. The door behind him opened, and Admiral Taewoo stepped onto the observation deck. The old man moved slowly these days. His hair had turned completely white, and deep lines marked his face. He had spent 40 years trying to prove that humans deserve better. 40 years of being ignored. "Morrison," the Admiral said, "walk with me." They walked through the ship's corridors in silence. Crew members stepped aside for the Admiral, but barely glanced at Jack. Finally, they reached the Admiral's private quarters. The door closed behind them. "You've been given a mission," Taewoo said. He did not sit down. His eyes were tired but sharp. Outpost Kira 7 sent a distress signal 3 days ago. A mining station on the edge of Varan territory. High Command wants a team sent to investigate. Jack nodded. He knew about the Varan. Everyone did. They were insectoid predators, 8 limbs, armored bodies, built for hunting. They had been raiding Coalition outposts for months. Every rescue mission had failed. The Varan killed everyone. Who's being sent? Jack asked, though he already knew the answer. You and 4 others. Lieutenant Subin, Sergeant Daeho, Corporal Yuna, Private June. The Admiral paused. All human. Jack felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. The Coalition wasn't sending a rescue team. They were sending sacrifices. 5 humans to die so the Coalition could say they tried. The aliens won't risk their own people, Jack said. It wasn't a question. No. They consider this mission impossible. Human lives are... Taewoo's voice cracked slightly. Acceptable losses. Jack looked at the old Admiral. This man had fought his entire life for humanity's place in the galaxy. And now he had to send 5 of his own people to die because the Coalition saw them as disposable. I could refuse, Jack said. You could. They would send someone else. Someone younger. Someone with a family, maybe. Taewoo shook his head. The mission will happen regardless. High Command has already decided. Jack understood. If he refused, someone else would die in his place. That wasn't something he could live with. When do we leave? He asked. 6 hours. The dropship Falling Star is being prepared. Taewoo reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal flask. He pressed it into Jack's hands. Earth whiskey. Real stuff. I've been saving it for 20 years. Jack looked at the flask, then at the Admiral. Sir, I can't take this. You can. And you will. Taewoo gripped Jack's shoulder with surprising strength. Come back alive, Morrison. Prove them wrong. prove all of them wrong. Jack tucked the flask into his jacket. He saluted the Admiral and walked out. 6 hours later, Jack stood in the hangar bay of the Endless Dawn. The dropship Falling Star waited before him, small and battered. It had seen better days. Around him, his team gathered their gear. Lieutenant Sue Bin was checking the communication equipment for the third time. She was the best communication specialist Jack had ever worked with. Calm under pressure, sharp as a blade. She didn't speak much, but when she did, people listened. Sergeant Deho carried enough weapons for 10 soldiers. He was built like a mountain, with arms thicker than most people's legs. He had a loud laugh and a louder voice, but underneath the jokes, he was the most reliable soldier Jack knew. Corporal Yuna organized medical supplies with careful precision. She had soft eyes and gentle hands, but Jack had seen her work under fire. Nothing shook her. She could pull a bullet out of a screaming soldier while explosions shook the walls, and her hands never trembled. Private June sat in the pilot's seat, running system checks. He was the youngest of the group, barely 22, but he could fly anything. Jack had seen him navigate an asteroid field blindfolded on a bed. The kid was either incredibly skilled or incredibly lucky. Probably both. They were good soldiers. Good people. And the coalition had sent them to die. Jack climbed into the dropship and looked at his team. They all knew what this mission meant. He could see it in their eyes. But none of them complained. None of them asked to stay behind. "Listen up," Jack said. "High Command expects us to fail. They expect us to die. They're already writing our names on memorial walls." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But I don't care what they expect. We're going to that outpost. We're going to find survivors. And we're going to bring them home." Deho grinned. "Sounds like a plan, Commander." Subin nodded silently. Yuna gave a small smile. June cracked his knuckles and started the engines. The Falling Star lifted off the hangar floor and turned toward the vast darkness of space. Through the cockpit window, Jack could see the distant glow of Kira 7's star system. Somewhere out there, people were waiting, hoping, dying. Jack made a silent promise to himself. He had led soldiers before. He had lost soldiers before. But not this time. This time, everyone was coming home. The dropship accelerated into the void. Behind them, the endless dawn grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among billions. Ahead of them, death waited. But Jack Morrison had never been good at following expectations. Jack Morrison was dispatched to die. What he did instead shook the galaxy. Part 2. First contact with Death Outpost Kira 7 floated in the darkness like a dead thing. The mining station had been carved into a massive asteroid, turning rock and metal into a home for 300 workers. Now it was silent. No lights, no signals. Just a dark shape against the stars. June brought the Falling Star in slowly, weaving through debris that drifted around the station. Pieces of ships, cargo containers, things that might have been bodies, frozen solid in the vacuum of space. "Docking Bay 3 looks clear," June reported. His voice was steady, but his knuckles were white on the controls. "I'm taking us in." The dropship slid through the damaged bay doors and touched down on the metal floor. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting red shadows across the walls. The air recyclers groaned like dying animals. Jack checked his weapon and looked at his team. "Stay close. Stay quiet. We don't know what's waiting for us." They moved out information. Jack led the way, his rifle raised. Deho covered their backs with his heavy plasma cannon. Subin monitored her scanner for any signals. Yuna stayed in the middle, ready to help anyone who fell. The station was a graveyard. Blood painted the walls in dark streaks. Claw marks cut deep into the metal. But there were no bodies. The Viren never left bodies behind. They took their prey. Movement ahead, Subin whispered. Faint life signs. 17. Maybe 18. 200 meters. Lower level. Survivors. Jack felt his heart beat faster. They were still alive. We should report back, Subin said. Call for backup. This isn't what we planned for. Jack shook his head. If we leave, those people die. The coalition won't send another team. You know that. Commander, our mission was reconnaissance. We're supposed to assess and report, not engage. Subin's voice was tight with frustration. We're 5 people against an unknown number of Viren. Jack turned to face her. Our mission was to die, Lieutenant. That's what High Command wanted. A nice, quiet death so they could check a box. He gestured at the bloody walls around them. I'm changing the mission. Subin stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Understood, Commander. They pushed deeper into the station. The corridors grew narrower, darker. Strange clicking sounds echoed from somewhere far away. The Viren were here, watching, waiting that finally they reached a heavy cargo bay door. Someone had welded it shut from the inside. Scorch marks showed where the Viren had tried to cut through. Jack knocked on the door. 3 times. Then 2 times. Then 3 times again. An old human signal. Silence. Then, slowly, the sound of metal grinding. The door cracked open, and a face appeared in the gap. Human, female, young. Her eyes were wide with fear and hope. You're real, she whispered. You're actually real. They entered the cargo bay and found the survivors huddled together. 17 people. 10 humans, including workers, engineers, and 3 children. 5 Keth, the stocky 4-armed miners who had thick gray skin and deep-set eyes. 2 Rilani, tall beings made of something like living crystal, their bodies glowing faintly in the dim light. A young girl sat apart from the others, clutching a broken maintenance drone to her chest. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Her name, Jack would learn later, was Hadashnah. One of the Keth stepped forward. His name was Brog, and he seemed to be the leader of the survivors. 5 soldiers, he rumbled, his 4 arms crossed. They send 5 soldiers to save us. Humans, no less. Better than nothing, Jack replied. Is it? Brog's voice was bitter. The Viren have been hunting us for 6 days. They could have killed us any time, but they don't. They enjoy our fear. They pick us off one by one. He shook his head. We sent distress signals to the coalition. We begged for help. And they sent 5 humans with guns. Jack didn't argue. Brog was right. The coalition had abandoned them. But that didn't change what needed to happen now. How many Viren? Jack asked. Hundreds. Maybe more. There's a broodmother somewhere in the lower levels. She controls them all. A broodmother. Jack had heard stories. Viren broodmothers were massive creatures, twice the size of regular drones. They commanded their swarms through some kind of psychic connection. Kill the broodmother, and the swarm would fall into chaos. One of the Rilani spoke. Its voice chimed like bells, soft and musical. You cannot fight the Viren. No species can. They are death itself. I've met death before, Jack said. We didn't get along. He gathered his team and the survivors around a holographic map of the station. The layout was complex, full of maintenance tunnels and mining shafts. Perfect for an ambush. Perfect for a trap. We're not running, Jack announced. Running is what they expect. Every species they hunt runs. That's why they always win. What do you suggest? Brog asked. We fight? With what? Broken tools and empty hope? With this station. Jack pointed at the map. We know these corridors. We know the systems. The VRN don't. They think they're hunting prey. But we're going to turn this place into a slaughterhouse. Deho grinned and patted his plasma cannon. Now you're speaking my language, Commander. Yuna began organizing the survivors, checking their injuries, handing out medical supplies. Subin worked on hacking into the station's environmental controls. June stayed near the entrance, watching for movement. Ha-na. The young girl with the broken drone tugged at Jack's sleeve. She held up the machine. "Can you fix it?" she asked quietly. "My father made it for me. Before they took him." Jack knelt down to her level. The drone was badly damaged, but maybe repairable. "I'll see what we can do," he said. "What's its name?" "Bolt," Hannah said. "Because he's fast." Jack managed a small smile. "That's a good name." The clicking sounds grew louder, closer. The motion sensors began to flash red. Everyone went silent. In the darkness beyond the cargo bay, something moved. Many somethings. Hundreds of legs scraping against metal. Hundreds of eyes reflecting the emergency lights. Jack stood and raised his rifle. Around him, his team took positions. Even some of the survivors picked up whatever they could find. Metal pipes. Mining tools. Anything. "They're coming," Subin said. Jack nodded. "Then let's give them a welcome they'll never forget." The first VRN burst through the ventilation shaft. 8 limbs. Armored body. Mandibles dripping with venom. It screamed, a high-pitched sound that hurt the ears. Jack fired. The creature fell. Behind it, dozens more poured into the corridor. The battle for Kira 7 had begun. Jack Morrison was dispatched to die. What he did instead shook the galaxy. Part 3. The hunt reversed. VRN attacked like a flood of nightmares. They poured through every opening, climbing walls, dropping from ceilings, their armored bodies crashing against barricades. Their screams filled the air, a chorus of hunger and rage. But Jack Morrison had prepared for them. The first wave hit Deho's kill zone. The sergeant had spent 2 hours rigging explosives along the main corridor. When 20 VRN charged through, he pressed the trigger. The blast tore through them, sending broken bodies flying in every direction. The wall shook. Smoke filled the air. "That's for the welcome party," Deho shouted, already reloading his plasma cannon. More came. They always came. But now they were careful. The VRN were predators, but they weren't stupid. They had never faced prey that fought back like this. It confused them. It made them hesitate, and hesitation was death. Subin worked from a control room deep in the station's core. Her fingers flew across keyboards, hijacking systems that had been abandoned for days. Life support, environmental controls, emergency protocols. She turned the station itself into a weapon. "Corridor 7, sealing now," she announced through the communication system. Freezing gas in 3, 2, 1. Vents opened along the corridor, releasing clouds of supercooled gas. The temperature dropped instantly to -80 degrees. The VRN caught in the blast slowed, their cold-blooded bodies unable to handle the sudden change. They stumbled. They fell. They stopped moving entirely. "Good work, Lieutenant," Jack said through his earpiece. "Keep them guessing." Yuna had set up a medical station in the cargo bay. Survivors came to her with cuts, burns, broken bones. She treated them all, her hands never stopping, her voice calm and steady. When a young Kethmeyer was brought in with a deep gash across his chest, she stitched him up in 5 minutes and sent him back to the barricade. "You're not dying on my watch," she told him. "Now get back out there." June kept the falling star warm and ready. The dropship sat in the damaged hangar bay, engines humming quietly. If everything went wrong, he would be their only escape. But Jack had ordered him to stay put unless absolutely necessary. I feel useless just sitting here, June muttered. Your time will come, Jack replied. Trust me. The battle stretched into hours. The Viren attacked in waves, probing defenses, testing weak points. Jack moved constantly, appearing wherever the fighting was heaviest. He fired until his rifle overheated, then switched to his sidearm. When that ran dry, he used a metal pipe he picked up from the floor. The Relani watched him with something like wonder. Their species was peaceful. They had never seen violence like this. But one of them, the one called Glow, followed Jack into the maintenance tunnels when he went to scout. Why do you keep fighting? Glow asked. Its voice chimed softly in the darkness. You are injured. You are tired. Yet, you continue. Jack wiped blood from a cut on his forehead. He hadn't even noticed when he'd gotten it. Because stopping isn't an option. But you could die. Your species lives such short lives. Why waste what little time you have? Jack paused, leaning against the tunnel wall. His legs ached. His lungs burned. Every part of him wanted to rest. But somewhere in the darkness, people were counting on him. Humans don't think about time the same way you do, he said. We know our lives are short. That's why we fight so hard to protect them. Not just our own lives, but the lives of everyone around us. He looked at Glow, at the soft light pulsing beneath its crystalline skin. No one left behind. That's what we believe. Even if it kills us. Glow was silent for a long moment. Then it said, I find this inefficient, but also admirable. Story of humanity, Jack said with a tired smile. They returned to the main barricade just as another wave attacked. This time, the Viren came smarter. They used the bodies of their fallen as shields. They attacked multiple points at once, stretching the defenders thin. Deho held the main corridor with 3 Keth volunteers. His plasma cannon roared, cutting down Viren after Viren. But there were too many. They pushed closer. One of them got past the barricade and slashed at Deho's leg. He went down hard. Sergeant. Jack rushed forward, firing as he ran. He reached Deho and dragged him back behind cover. The Keth closed the gap, their forearms swinging mining picks with deadly force. Yuna was there in seconds, cutting away Deho's armor to reach the wound. It was deep. Too deep. Blood pumped out in rhythmic pulses. I can stabilize him, Yuna said, her voice tight. But he can't fight anymore. Deho grabbed Jack's arm. Don't you dare pull back because of me, Commander. You finish this. Jack nodded. I will. Rest now. That's an order. The battle paused. The Viren pulled back, regrouping. But Jack knew it wasn't over. They were learning, adapting, and somewhere in the depths of the station, the Blood Mother was watching through hundreds of eyes. She was interested now. Jack could feel it somehow, like a cold pressure at the back of his mind. She had never seen prey like this. Prey that fought. Prey that won. She wanted to understand. Jack gathered his remaining fighters. Su-Ben had mapped the Viren movements. They were concentrating in the lower levels, protecting something. The Blood Mother. If we kill her, the swarm falls apart, Jack said. That's our only way out. And how do you plan to reach her? Brog asked. The Keth leader had fought bravely, but exhaustion lined his face. She's surrounded by her entire swarm. Jack looked at the map, at the twisting tunnels and mining shafts. Then he looked at his people, tired, wounded, scared, but still standing. I'll go alone, he said. Draw them away. Give the rest of you time to evacuate. Commander, that's suicide, Su-Ben said. No, suicide was what the Coalition planned for us. Jack checked his weapon, loaded a fresh power cell. This is something else. This is a choice. He turned and walked toward the darkness dot behind him. Subin called out, "Jack!" He stopped but didn't turn around. "Come back alive," she said. "That's an order." Jack smiled, though she couldn't see it. "I'll do my best, Lieutenant." Then he stepped into the tunnels, alone, walking toward the monster that waited below, somewhere in the darkness. The Broodmother felt him coming, and for the first time in her long life, she felt something she had never felt before: curiosity, and just a tiny spark of fear. Jack Morrison was dispatched to die. What he did instead shook the galaxy. Part 4. The monster and the man. The tunnels grew darker as Jack descended. The emergency lights had failed long ago in these depths. He moved by the pale glow of his helmet lamp, its beam cutting through shadows that seemed almost alive. The Viren were everywhere. He could hear them in the walls, above him, below him, clicking, scraping, watching, but they didn't attack. They herded him, guiding him deeper into their nest like a river flowing toward the sea. The Broodmother wanted him alive. He was counting on that dot. The nest opened before him suddenly, a vast cavern carved from the asteroid's heart. Organic structures covered the walls, strange growths that pulsed with dim light. Hundreds of Vion clung to every surface, their compound eyes reflecting his lamp like 1,000 tiny mirrors. And in the center of it all, she waited. The Broodmother was massive, twice the size of her drones. Her body was a mountain of armored plates and razor-sharp limbs. Her head was crowned with sensory organs that twitched constantly, reading the air, reading him. A translation device hung from her neck, a piece of coalition technology she had taken from some previous prey, human. Her voice came through the device as a series of clicks rendered into words. Cold, ancient, curious. You came to me willingly. Why? Jack stood his ground, though every instinct screamed at him to run. I wanted to talk. The Broodmother made a sound that might have been laughter. Talk. Prey does not talk. Prey runs. Prey screams. Prey dies. I'm not prey. No? She moved closer, her massive body surprisingly graceful. You are small, soft. Your species lives barely 100 cycles. You have no claws, no armor, no venom. By every measure, you are prey. Jack met her gaze without flinching. Then why haven't you killed me? Silence. The Broodmother studied him with those alien eyes, and Jack felt her mind pressing against his, trying to understand what she was seeing. Because you confuse me, she admitted finally. I have hunted for 3,000 cycles. I have killed millions. Every species, when faced with death, behaves the same. They fight briefly. They run. They beg. Eventually, they accept. Her limbs clicked against the ground. But you're kind. You do not accept. Even when you cannot win, you continue. Why? Jack thought about the question. Really thought about it. Not because he needed to buy time, though he did, but because she deserved an answer. Because we don't know how to quit, he said. It's not strength. It's not bravery. It's just how we're built. We see something impossible, and we try anyway. We lose, and we try again. We fall, and we stand back up. He shrugged. It's probably a flaw, but it's our flaw. And we're proud of it. The Broodmother was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I have decided to keep you alive. A trophy, a specimen. I will study you, learn what makes your species so stubborn. Perhaps I will breed it out of you. Perhaps I will breed it into my own children. Jack felt cold sweat run down his back. He had hoped for more time. The rescue team wasn't ready yet. But then again, neither was she. There's one problem with your plan, Jack said. What is that? I'm not staying. He had been working on his restraints since the moment the Viren grabbed him. Old trick. Dislocate the thumb. Slip the cuff. It hurt like hell. The pain was temporary. Death was permanent. The blade hidden in his boot was in his hand before the Broodmother could react. He lunged forward, not at her body, but at the cluster of sensory organs on her head. A weak point. The one place she protected above all else. She was faster. Of course she was. 3,000 years of hunting had made her reflexes perfect. Her limb caught him across the chest, sending him flying backward. He hit the ground hard, felt ribs crack, tasted blood, but he had cut her. Just a scratch across one of her sensory stalks. It leaked pale fluid. The Broodmother screamed. The sound echoed through the cavern, through the entire nest. Every Viorn felt her pain, her rage. You dare! She advanced on him, all pretense of curiosity gone. You insignificant creature! You wounded me! Jack struggled to his feet. His chest burned with every breath. The blade was still in his hand. That's what we do, he gasped. We're small. We're weak. But we fight anyway. She raised her limb to strike him down, and then the wall exploded. Subin had refused to let Jack go alone. The moment he'd left, she had started planning. June had piloted the falling star through the asteroid's maintenance tunnels, a path so narrow and dangerous that the ship's computer had actually tried to override his controls. Yuna had stabilized Deho and then grabbed a weapon herself. Even young Hana had helped, using her repaired drone bolt to scout ahead. The dropship burst through the cavern wall in a shower of rock and flame. Its guns blazed, cutting down Viarm by the dozens. The swarm scattered in confusion, their psychic link to the Broodmother disrupted by her pain. Subin dropped from the ship's ramp, firing as she fell. Behind her, 2 Kef volunteers laid down covering fire. Even Glow was there, its crystalline body glowing bright with something that might have been courage. Jack! Subin reached him and pulled him to his feet. We need to go. Not yet. Jack pointed at the Broodmother. She was recovering, her rage building. If they ran now, she would follow. She would never stop following. I have to end this. He pushed away from Subin and picked up a plasma cutter from the debris. Heavy, industrial, meant for slicing through asteroid rock. The Broodmother saw him coming. She laughed, that cold clicking sound. You cannot kill me, human. I am eternal. Nothing is eternal. Jack charged. She struck at him, and he didn't try to dodge. Her limb pierced his shoulder, going straight through. The pain was beyond anything he'd ever felt. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. His hand found her nerve cluster, that mass of sensory organs she protected so carefully, and he drove the plasma cutter straight into it. The Broodmother screamed again. But this time, the scream didn't stop. It went on and on as her nervous system overloaded. As 3,000 years of hunting came to an end, she fell. Around the cavern, every Viren felt their mother die. They convulsed, their psychic bond shattering. Some fled into the darkness. Others simply collapsed, unable to function without her guidance. Jack fell too. His shoulder was a ruin. Blood pooled beneath him. The world grew dim, but then hands grabbed him, Subin, Yuna, June. They lifted him onto the dropship as glow covered their retreat. The last thing Jack saw before he passed out was Hana's face, her eyes bright with tears and hope. You did it, she whispered. You killed the monster. Jack tried to smile. Then darkness took him, and he felt nothing at all. The falling star rose from the cavern, trailing smoke and fire. Behind it, the Viorn nest collapsed into chaos. The hunt was over, and humanity had won. Jack Morrison was dispatched to die. What he did instead shook the galaxy. Part 5. Humanity Rises 3. Weeks passed before Jack Morrison opened his eyes again. He woke in a medical bay far nicer than anything he'd ever seen. The walls were smooth white metal. Soft light filtered down from the ceiling. Machines beeped quietly, monitoring his vital signs. His shoulder was wrapped in regenerative bandages that hummed with gentle warmth. Coalition Central Command. The heart of the galaxy. He had never been here before. Few humans had. The door opened, and Admiral Taewoo walked in. The old man looked different somehow. Straighter, prouder, like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "You're awake," Taewoo said. "Good. The council wants to see you." Jack tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his chest where his ribs were still healing. "The council? What for?" "You'll see." Taewoo's eyes were bright. "Your team is waiting outside. All of them. They refused to leave until you woke up." They helped Jack into a wheelchair. His body was still too damaged to walk far. But his mind was clear, and that was enough. His team surrounded him as he emerged from the medical bay. Subin stood at attention, but her eyes were soft with relief. Daeho sat in his own wheelchair, his leg wrapped in healing mesh, but he was grinning like a fool. Yuna checked Jack's bandages immediately, clucking her tongue at something she didn't like. June just smiled, looking younger than ever. "Thought we lost you," Daeho said. "Twice, actually. Your heart stopped on the way back." "Takes more than dying to stop me," Jack said. Obviously. They moved through the corridors of Central Command. Aliens of every species stopped to stare. Some whispered to each other. Some pointed. Jack had never felt so many eyes on him in his life. The council chamber was enormous. Seats rose in tiers around a central platform, filled with representatives from all 12 coalition species. The Rilani sat in crystalline chairs that matched their bodies. The Keth occupied reinforced benches built for their weight. Dozens of other species filled the remaining spaces, each more strange and wonderful than the last thought. And there, in the visitors section, sat the survivors of Kira 7, Brog and his fellow Keth, the 2 Rilani, including Glow, the human workers, and their families, and Hana, clutching her repaired drone bolt to her chest. She waved when she saw Jack. He waved back. A chime sounded, and the chamber fell silent. The High Chancellor, an ancient being of living light, rose to speak. "We are gathered to discuss the events of Outpost Kira 7, the Chancellor announced. Its voice echoed through the chamber without any visible source. Commander Jack Morrison and his team were sent on a reconnaissance mission. What they accomplished has changed our understanding of humanity." The Chancellor gestured, and holographic images appeared in the air. The battle at Kira 7, the defense of the survivors, the final confrontation with the Broodmother. No rescue mission to Viaran territory had ever succeeded before this, the Chancellor continued. Commander Morrison not only rescued 17 survivors, but killed a Broodmother that had terrorized Coalition space for 3,000 years. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some skeptical, some amazed. A representative from one of the insectoid species stood. "How do we know this is accurate?" Humans are known for exaggeration. Before anyone could respond, Glow rose from the visitors section. The Rilani moved to the center of the chamber, its crystalline form catching the light. "I was there," Glow said, its voice chiming through the silence. "I watched these humans fight. I watched them refuse to abandon strangers. I watched their commander walk alone into the nest of a monster because he believed it would save others." Glow turned to face the skeptical representative. "I have lived for 200 cycles. I have seen many things, but I have never seen anything like humanity's spirit." Brog stood next. His deep voice rumbled through the chamber. "My people are miners. We are not fighters, but the humans taught us to stand. They shared their weapons, their plans, their courage. Without them, we would all be dead. One by one, the survivors spoke. Each told their story. Each praised the humans who had saved them. The chamber fell silent when they finished. Then the High Chancellor spoke again. Admiral Tae-woo has submitted a recommendation. He proposes that Commander Jack Morrison be awarded the Star of Unity, the highest honor our coalition can bestow. This medal has never been given to a human. More murmurs. Some positive, some negative. Jack watched the delegates argue among themselves, their alien faces unreadable. Then the vote was called. One by one, species registered their decision. When it was done, the Chancellor announced the result. The motion passes. Commander Jack Morrison will receive the Star of Unity. Half the chamber applauded. The other half sat in stunned silence. Jack wasn't sure which reaction surprised him more. Admiral Tae-woo himself placed the medal around Jack's neck. It was a small thing, a simple star made of interlocking metals from all 12 homeworlds. But it weighed more than anything Jack had ever carried. Speech, someone called from the crowd. Others took up the call. Speech, speech. Jack looked at the medal, then at the hundreds of faces watching him. Aliens who had spent decades looking down on his species. Survivors who had fought beside him. His team who had followed him into hell and back. He took a breath. His chest still hurt. But some things were worth the pain. This medal doesn't belong to me, he said. His voice was rough, but it carried through the chamber. It belongs to Lieutenant Soo-bin, who refused to abandon me even when I ordered her to. It belongs to Sergeant Daeho, who held a corridor against 100 enemies with nothing but stubborn courage. It belongs to Corporal Yuna, who saved more lives than I can count. It belongs to Private June, who flew a ship through solid rock because giving up wasn't in his vocabulary. Jack looked at the survivors, at Glow and Brog and Hana. It belongs to every person who chose to stand instead of kneel. Every person who decided that survival meant nothing without honor. He paused, letting the words settle. Humanity isn't special because we're strong. We're not. We're small. We're fragile. We die easily. But we don't quit. We don't abandon each other. And we don't accept defeat just because someone tells us we've lost. He looked directly at the delegates who had sent him to die. Send us on suicide missions. Tell us we're expendable. We don't care. We'll keep fighting. We'll keep winning. Not because we're better than anyone else, but because that's who we are. Silence filled the chamber. Then Hana started clapping. Just a small girl with a repaired drone, applauding with all her heart. Others joined her. Brog, Glow, the survivors. Then Soo-bin and Daeho and Yuna and June. Then Admiral Tae-woo. Then delegates from species that had never applauded, humans before. The sound built until it echoed off the walls like thunder. Later, when the ceremony was over, Jack sat alone on a balcony overlooking the fleet yard. Ships from every coalition species hung in the void, their lights twinkling like stars. Daeho rolled his wheelchair up beside him. He pulled out a familiar metal flask and handed it to Jack. You still have that? Jack asked. Admiral said to save it for when we won. Daeho grinned. Figured discounts. They drank together, watching the ships. Among them, human vessels flew in formation with alien craft. For the first time, they were equals. Think they'll reclassify us? Daeho asked. Bump us up from Tier 6? Jack shrugged. Probably. Eventually. Does it matter? Not really. Daeho laughed. We know what we're worth. Everyone else is just catching up. In the distance, a new coalition fleet was forming. Humans and aliens working together, preparing to face whatever came next. Jack Morrison finished his drink and smiled. The galaxy had thought humanity was weak. It had thought humans were expendable. It had been wrong, and it would never make that mistake again.